We start with a gigantic story in the world of digital marketing, the TikTok ban. President Joe Biden has signed legislation that gives ByteDance two options: sell TikTok to an approved buyer or have it banned in the United States. People are starting to get a bit worried now that this might actually happen. While the ban is closer to becoming a reality, there will probably still be legal roadblocks ahead that'll keep everyone's favorite time killer around a little bit longer. Simply selling the app is far easier said than done, assuming ByteDance even wants to do so. And from what I've read today, they don't want to do it. The big question here: do you think TikTok will actually get banned in the US? Ian, let's start with you.
It's very tough to know at this stage. I think, Brian, you and I were having a quick chat before we just hit record, and I think you're probably right that it will not get banned, but I think it could be down to just loopholes and red tape as opposed to the fact that they choose to comply with the new law that has been signed. That's my kind of feeling on it. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of political stuff behind the scenes. There's a lot of the way it's been written, I believe, affects far more organizations. Just because of the way they chose to word it, I think it affects far more organizations than perhaps even the US Senate and government understands. And for that reason, I think they're going to ByteDance and particularly TikTok could probably pull this out in court, and then the US would be like, oh yeah, we need to rewrite this.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Ian, the idea of, while it looks right now, it seems pretty cut and dry, like, oh, this is being signed and now we're going to go down this path. I just don't see it at all still. And I've been saying it since day one that there's so many loopholes and there's going to be so many, roadblocks in the way, and money always talks. Somehow, some way, it's going to escape and it's going to remain around. I just have a hard time believing that in 9 months, and let's say a few more, because there's the ability to tack on, I think, 3 more to make it a year. I have a hard time believing that this time next year we're going to be talking about TikTok just isn't here anymore. I really, really find that hard to believe. Duncan, how about you?
I mean, I find a little interesting. The whole thing's been very interesting. I kind of wonder, they basically gave them an ultimatum. They basically said, sell their portion. And they said something about it being connected to an American company for them to be like, okay with it. But I mean, it's a little, what's the right word? Arrogant, I think, of the US to assume that it can just, put its nose in other countries' business. Now, it is sort of an odd request too, if you think about it. So they have an issue with this entity, the Chinese Communist Party, having a stake in TikTok, and they're worried that the data is going there, even though TikTok said no, it's not going there. So they've already had these hearings, and now you have the U.S. saying, well, we don't care. You need to sell. The Chinese Communist Party needs to sell their portion, and then you need to give that to an American company. But meanwhile, if you look at how like Google, Meta, and all these US-based platforms have done this, they've been taking data from users in different parts of the country. I mean, China, maybe not so much, because China basically banned all of those apps from ever being used. And they have said, yeah, you got to use these Chinese versions of the same things. But point simply being, it's just a little arrogant for the U.S. to basically tell a private business that they have to do this or they're going to get their platform banned. Now, I do find it also a little interesting when you think about the Creator Fund when TikTok first started. It was built to encourage Americans to post videos and content. So like there's that angle of it too, is why was that created and only really launched in the U.S.? And maybe the answer is that, yeah, they wanted as much data from Americans as they could, and that's what they're having an issue with. So to me, it's almost, I mean, I'm not too sure is the exact reason as to why they're banning TikTok. They may say one thing versus what it actually is, but it seems like the data part of it is the problem that they're taking issue with. And I think it would be really funny if TikTok actually does abide, but they sell it to like a Canadian company, as an example, versus an American one, and see what they do. because I think that would be an interesting like chess move on TikTok's part. But again, I don't necessarily know if this Chinese Communist Party is ever going to sell their stake and if TikTok's going to make them. So
yeah.
I don't know. I could see it being banned, but I am surprised that Biden actually signed it as is. I still think it's a little vague. And we'll see what the future has in store. I know a lot of, basically a whole generation that would be kind of annoyed if TikTok goes away.
My kids.
Yeah.
And Ian, like you and I were talking about last week, there's a couple different things at play. The idea of TikTok with the algorithm and TikTok without the algorithm, they are two completely different things. TikTok minus the algorithm is like the car minus the engine. That's just a bunch of users and this platform. That part, whatever, that's not a big deal. It's this algorithm that's kind of the holy grail, if you will, that no one wants to give up. So, even if there was some sort of sale, what does that sale look like? What is included and what isn't included? And, is there something like that in place to kind of get around this ultimate ban that they're talking about? So I'm not sure.